Good morning to everyone, and thank you for coming to this Planning Committee meeting for the 9th of September. I would like to welcome members of the Planning Committee, officers and members of the public in attendance at today's meeting. Welcome to members of the public and press who may be watching the meeting live on YouTube. I am Councillor Christine Ward, Chairman of the Planning Committee. Please remember that this meeting is being broadcast live and will be available for repeated viewing. Please could all councillors follow the council's ground rules for virtual meetings, which have been well circulated. In particular, please use the conversation panel to indicate any request to speak, and only speak when invited to do so by me, the Chairman. When members need to vote on a planning application, I will call each member to vote in turn. Please express your vote verbally with for or against or abstain. In accordance with the government regulations regarding virtual meetings and remote participation, all participants must be able to hear and be heard by all in attendance. When voting, I ask that all members of the Planning Committee do so in the acknowledgement that they have heard the full debate and can therefore vote in accordance with the regulations. In the event of any technical problems, there will be a short adjournment to establish if the fault can be addressed. Please bear with us in these circumstances. If an individual loses connection, and the meeting can practically continue with a quorum, it will do so. I will now call each member of the Planning Committee and ask them to identify themselves as being in attendance at this meeting. And as I previously mentioned, I'm Councillor Christine Ward, Chairman of the Planning Committee. Councillor Anne Bellows.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Hilary Brand, I believe we've had apologies. Councillor Rebecca Clark.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Kate Cressell.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Alan Glass.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor David Hawkins.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
Present. Present, Chairman.
Councillor Christine Hopkins, I believe also we've had apologies from. Councillor Mahmood Kangorani.
Present.
Councillor Joe Riley, I believe also apologies received. Councillor Tony Ring.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Michael Thierry.
Chairman. Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Beverly Thorne.
Here, Chairman.
Councillor Malcolm Wade.
Here, Chairman.
Thank you. I will now ask the officers to introduce themselves, beginning with our Chief Planning Officer.
Good morning, Planning Committee. I'm Claire Upton-Brown. I'm the Chief Planning Officer.
Thank you, Chairman. Andrew Kinghorn, Legal Advisor.
Karen Wardle, Democratic Services.
Matt Wisdom, Democratic Services.
Good morning, Chairman. My name is Stephen Bellet, and good morning to members as well.
Good morning.
Good morning, this is Jo Chambers, Development Management Officer.
Good morning, Planning Committee. This is Adleta Miszewska, Planning Officer.
Dean Brunton, Planning Performance Team Leader.
Thank you very much. So we'll go to apologies. We have Councillors Brand, Hopkins and Riley. Do we have any more?
No, that's correct.
Thank you very much. We will now confirm the minutes for the meetings held on the 27th of July and the 12th of August. Unless anybody indicates otherwise, I will take these as correct. I will accept those as correct. Thank you. Can I please have declarations of interest?
Are you going through the list? I think there's the RTS.
Yes, can you say if you have, are you declaring interest, Councillor Kangarani?
Actually, I live in Totton Ealing area, and I'm the member of the parish council, but I'm not on a member of the planning committee. Just wonder whether I can speak as well as vote.
Have you expressed any opinions on this before?
No, I haven't. No.
I'm sure that's fine. Karen, can you confirm that?
That is correct. That's fine.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more?
Yeah. Yes, Chairman. It's Councillor Arthur Davies here.
Thank you.
I have an interest in 3D 20/10627. I am a member of Tottenham Ealing Town Council, but I am not on the planning committee.
Thank you.
Chairman, if I may, it's Tony Ring.
Okay.
Yeah, page 7, 11369. Though it's rather technical, it's just to extend. I am on Ringwood Town Council planning and have voted in favour of this application before, so I won't take part in this one.
Thank you very much. Is that all? Do we have any more?
Councillor Ward. Kate Cressell.
Please go ahead.
I'm on Tottenham Town Council, but not on planning, and I haven't made any recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can we confirm that that is on item 3D?
Yes, it is. Sorry, Karen. Yes.
Beverly Thorne.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thorne.
Item 3B, page 11, 2010530. I'm a member of Forley Parish Council.
Thank you very much.
I am a member of Forley Parish Council, but we haven't had a meeting of the planning committee, therefore I don't consider I have any interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glass. Do we have any more?
Yeah, Chairman. We noticed we have the Eastleigh Airport extension.
We do.
Hythe and Dibden is actually on the flight path for aeroplanes for, I think it's returning to the airport. So I know our parish council has submitted a view. I haven't submitted a view or spoken about it at any great length to anybody at all. So I'm just declaring that as an interest. I do not believe it to be prejudicial unless the officers tell me otherwise, so I can continue in the debate and discussion when on that item.
That's fine. Thank you very much for letting us know, Councillor Wade. Do we have any more? Thank you. Then we'll go to our first application. And this is land of 31 Bartram Road, Ealing, Totton. Pages 31 to 44 on your agenda. Democratic Services, do you just want to repeat those that have an interest on this one?
Yes, if we could please just repeat it.
Okay, councillors, can you just repeat your interest on this one, please?
Councillor Cressell.
Thank you.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
Thank you.
Councillor Mahmood Kangarani.
Thank you.
Can we just confirm that it's as members of Tottenham Ealing Town Council and that they are just declaring an interest and that they haven't expressed a view or on those this application?
Is that correct, councillors?
Yes.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on then. I'd like to go to the case officer, Arisha Mishweska. Can you please give your presentation? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members. Before I start, can everyone see the presentation clearly?
We can, thank you.
Thank you. Members will remember this site and this proposal from an earlier meeting in May this year. The application is a resubmission of a previous refusal. The previous application was refused on the grounds of design and impact on residential amenity, namely loss of privacy to 35 Bartram Road. The application is again before committee today following a request from Councillor David Harrison. You will see in a moment that the revised proposal for determination today has been amended to omit first floor windows in the side elevation. These windows previously raised concerns, and today we have we will see that first floor windows were introduced in the rear elevation instead. There are no other design alterations in the scheme, and so the previous reason for refusal on design grounds still stands. As you can see here on the slide, the application site is located within the rearmost parts of the gardens of 31 and 33 Bartram Road. The site is surrounded by residential properties and Rose Road. The plot forms a part of a Victorian development which is characterized by mainly semi-detached properties which are located within quite long and narrow parcels. The site and its surroundings are actually quite prominent from Rose Road, partially because of the open sense of the real gardens surrounding it. As previously, the revised scheme consists of a 3-bedroom, 2-story detached dwelling. It would be accessed from Rose Road. It would be served by 2 car parking spaces in tandem arrangement, and it would have L-shaped garden which would wrap around the dwelling to the side and rear. I will now present a couple of slides which show the proposed dwelling and the previously proposed dwelling. This is the proposal for determination today, and we can see here on the rear elevation that the previously proposed first floor windows disappeared. This is the previously refused proposal, and here also we can see there was only landing window previously, and now the proposal involves window at first floor level as well. Just to remind, the main matters to be considered today are impact on the character and appearance of the area, impact on residential amenities, and impact on highway safety. Very quickly, I will remind you what the application plot looks like. This is how it looks like looking towards Bartram Road, and as I previously mentioned, it's quite prominent because of the open nature of the surrounding area. And here we have a photograph looking towards properties located at Fishers Road, and one photograph here again showing clearly the application site in context with the adjacent property at 35 Bartram Road, as well as the row of terraces located in Fishers Road. So now, very quickly, I will explain or maybe remind the reasons why we were previously concerned over design and why this was a part of the reason to refuse the application. So we officers, we note that the surrounding area is mainly characterized, as I said before, by long, narrow plots with mostly semi-detached Victorian dwellings, which face the roads and have generous gardens at rear. The gardens contribute towards open and verdant character of the area, and the character can also be quite enjoyed and is also seen from Rose Road. we officers consider that the proposed development would be at odds with the predominant character of the area. Due to its shape, the proposed plot the shape of the proposed plot would not be consistent with the surrounding plot, and the footprint of the new dwelling again varies from the majority of the dwellings surrounding the site, its detached nature, as well as the actual general arrangement within the plot as well. The new dwelling would have little space around it, and it would have very limited outdoor amenity space, which would again be in contrast with the prominent character of the area. As the site is prominent from Rose Road, as we can see on the photographs, the proposed development would have a great impact on the character and appearance of the surrounding area. It would appear at odds within the open and verdant character of the rear gardens situated nearby the new dwelling, and also at odds with the surrounding mainly semi-detached period properties. The proposed development would not enhance, unfortunately, the visual amenities currently enjoyed by the local residents. It is also noted that the limited outdoor amenity space, as well as tandem arrangement of the car parking, further suggests that the plot is of a size that cannot satisfactorily accommodate a dwelling. In terms of residential amenities, officers are generally satisfied that the scheme would have acceptable impacts on light and outlook currently enjoyed by the adjacent properties. However, the proposed bedroom window, which would face now directly the properties in Fishers Road, raise concerns. The window would be in a close proximity to the boundary with these properties. It would be clear, it would serve a bedroom, and it would also be at an elevated first floor level, and as a consequence it would provide a clear view into the adjacent rear gardens. Therefore, officers conclude that the window would cause an acceptable level of overlooking, as well as that sense of being overlooked in the gardens of the neighboring properties, and that would be to the detriment of the residential amenities that they currently enjoy. Finally, turning to impacts on highway safety, the revised scheme actually doesn't propose any changes which would alter previously reached conclusions, and therefore the proposal doesn't raise concerns over highway safety as previously. Just actually as a final point, I'd like to just clarify that the current recommendation includes a couple of more reasons to refuse this application, and these reasons derive from the requirements of the recently adopted local plan, and if members wish, I would be happy to explain this further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And members, do you have any questions for the officer, please? Nothing's coming up on my RTS. I'll give you a couple of more seconds. Okay, well, we have two speakers. We have Mr. Collett, which is the applicant, and Mr. Andrew Sherwood, the objector. So if we can go to Mr. Collett, you have 3 minutes, please, if you'd like to start.
Good morning, councillors. Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Excellent. Okay, this resubmission differs in one way to the proposal the committee considered in May. The two windows at the rear have been removed to address the overlooking of 35 Bartram Rose Garden, which was the main obstacle to progress. These have been replaced by one window which now faces towards Fishers Road. I would like to address the reasons given to recommend refusal this time and ask you to refer to the pictures provided for context. The first reason concerns location and design. It describes the plot as an open area of land, but when viewed from the road, drivers and pedestrians encounter a long stretch of high wooden fence that extends between Bartram and Fishers Road. It could be argued that opening at least 10 metres of this fencing to driveway and house frontage would create a more open and conventional street scene. Inadequate plot size and cramped layout is mentioned frequently but never substantiated. These concerns are shared by the Town Council, who describe the plot as being relatively small and having little amenity space. I assume this view stems from the 2016 planning refusal, to which this report refers and shares much of its conclusion and wording. However, the comparison is inappropriate, as the plot size has increased by 30%, it is now rectangular rather than L-shaped, the frontage is 100% wider, and the dwelling's footprint is smaller. To continue to describe the project as relatively small and cramped seems remarkable, as the plot is now larger than 6 of the 7 properties it borders, and the dwelling is proportionally smaller on its plot than all 7 neighbouring properties. Tandem car parking is once again criticised. However, the adjoining properties to the east and west have the same arrangement as the 2 houses opposite. The drive meets the council's car parking standards, and the highways report has raised no concerns. Poor design and negative impacts on the prevailing character and street scene is also discussed. On this 100-metre stretch of Rose Road, the street scene is diverse and without prevailing character, as slide 69 shows. The building's design, size and orientation were all carefully chosen to try and ensure it integrated well into the street scene. To describe as incongruous, the addition of a 4th detached house to this stretch of Rose Road might also be considered harsh. The second reason refers to an unacceptable level of overlooking. The planning officer refers to a concern raised by 43 Fishers Road that their garden would suffer an unacceptable level of overlooking from this bedroom window. I understand this concern, but the proposed dwelling and the properties on Fishers Road will be at least 33 metres apart. The property will be 3.5 metres from its boundary, and the 20-metre space between the new building and the garden and patio areas of number 43 is currently occupied by 2 driveways, several wooden fences and a mix of outbuildings and trees. The pictures I provided indicated that it might be actually quite difficult for the occupant of 43 to see the window in question. The officer cited 4 of the reasons for refusal, which were not mentioned in the report we discussed in May. I've been unable to carry out detailed research, but noticed from other approved applications that these can be overcome by the imposition of preconditions, and I'd be happy to pursue that approach. That's it for me. So
thank you very much. You timed that perfectly. Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions for Mr. Culler? Again, nothing is showing on my screen. So we'll go over to Mr. Sherwood. Mr. Sherwood, you have 3 minutes if you'd like to start now. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to address some of the concerns that I have an objection to this committee. So first of all, the mention of the property being out of character for the surrounding area is not just a matter, and of not being sufficient size for the plot. It's not just a matter of pure footprint. This is an area that is predominantly back-to-back detached gardens of original Victorian design, and this additional property would represent a massive change to put a 2-storey house separately standing in the middle of what is back gardens for the rest of this road of properties. This would be very much out of character for the area and would very much tower over the existing gardens of all the surrounding properties. And the concern that this has raised should be obvious in the number of objections that have come from local residents. There have been, I think it was 7 separate objections from local residents to this application, which shows the strength of concern of the local neighbourhood that this proposed plan will essentially ruin the surrounding area. I'd also want to make a point that granting this application would set an unfortunate precedent for development in these back garden spaces in this area. The area in question is already quite crowded and built up and has issues with parking and traffic, and granting an application for one of these sort of houses to be built in a middle back garden plot would essentially give the green light for this to happen across the local area, and could lead to much more development in what is already a significantly built up area. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, members, do you have any questions for Mr. Sherwood? Again, nobody's indicating that they want to ask questions, so we'll go into debate. We are now in debate. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't realise I was going to be in quite so early. I've been looking at the paperwork, and on page 32, it says where the appeal details are, because this has gone to appeal already, as we know. It does say in conclusion, I won't go through all the bits and pieces, but it, amongst other matters, requires new development to be well designed to respect the character, identity and context of the area, and that was the planning inspector's view, and to a certain extent I myself at this moment in time can see no reason that this has been overcome, because as the objector has actually quite well spoken about the fact that this is a unique little Victorian area. So I am minded at the moment, Madam Chairman, that I don't think we have had enough changes to overturn the inspector's decision and our last decision. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Malcolm Wade.
Yes, Chairman, just to let you know that despite the new equipment, I dropped out the presentation for a few minutes and had to rejoin the meeting. Therefore, I will not take part in the vote.
Thank you very much. Councillor Maureen Holding.
Yes, having read the papers and listened this morning, I totally agree with the officers and Councillor Sevier that there have not been enough changes, and I would like to propose refusal on the same grounds that the officers have put forward, and hope I get a seconder.
I would happily second that, Councillor Holding.
Thank you.
Was that Councillor Glass?
It was.
Thank you very much, but we'll continue with the debate for now. Councillor Kate Crizell.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to second, but I was beat to the post, but thank you. I agree with everything that's been said so far.
Thank you very much. Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would like to concur with the objector, Mr. Sherwood. I know the area well, and the level of parking and the difficulty actually getting through the parked cars in this area is considerable. So I am very much minded to refuse this as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Michael Thierry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I was going to make a request through you, if I may, that we delay making proposals until the full debate has been heard. There does seem to be a way of whereby we jump in rather quickly with making a proposal one way or the other, and I think it would be right and proper for the applicant and those who object to the proposals to hear the full debate before members come up with proposals one way or the other. Forgive me if I've spoken out of turn.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thierry. Do we have any more questions, or do we have any more participants to debate? Nobody's coming up. Okay, then in that case, I'll go back to Mr. Collett. You have 1 minute.
Hello there. I'd like to thank Councillor Thierry for that comment. It did seem that people had made up their mind rather soon. The seven, just go quickly through some of the points I made there. The 7 complaints that were referred to were predominantly regarding the parking, and I think we've addressed that. The highways are happy with it. There's loads of comparable sites within a very short distance. The worry about setting a precedent is unfounded, because there's only one other possible site that this could happen on in the entire area. So I don't believe there's a risk that will suddenly be dotted with infill sites, because there's only, like I say, there's only one comparable area on the whole of the estate. And again, Councillor Sevier again referred to the 2016 report, and I just think that that's an incomparable report. It's for a different size, it's for a different shape, everything is different about it, it's a different design, and I cannot understand why that continues to be referred to. I feel it's a little bit unfair. And that's all I've got. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sherwood, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, so to reiterate my previous point concerning the previous design and the impact of this new design, whilst the new design may be lower in footprint, I believe the previous design was a bungalow and this design is 2 stories, which by its very nature is much more imposing on the local area than a bungalow. That's all.
Thank you very much. Members, we will now go to the vote, but I just want to reiterate what Councillor Thierry has said. I've let this one go because you're actually not overturning the recommendation, but for future applications, we will wait until the end of debates before people start making other proposals. So the recommendation for this was for refusal, and that proposal was asked to be accepted by Councillor Holding and seconded by Councillor Alan Glass. So we will be voting for, against, or for, or against, or abstain. So we're voting to refuse this one. So if I can go to Councillor Anne Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Benison.
For.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
For.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
For.
Councillor Kate Crizell.
For.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
Abstain.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
For.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
For.
Councillor Kangarani.
Abstain.
Councillor Tony Ring.
For.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
For.
Councillor Michael Thierry.
For.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
For.
Councillor Malcolm Wade.
Abstaining, Chairman, as due to connectivity.
Thank you. And I will be voting for. So that recommendation to refuse has been carried. Can I have confirmation, please, from Democratic Services on that vote?
Hello, you're correct. That carries the motion to refuse. I've had 14 votes for and 3 abstentions.
Thank you very much. That concludes that item. I'm just going to allow the members of public to allow the meeting, so I'm going to adjourn the meeting for a few minutes. Thank you, members and public. I'd like to declare that this planning committee meeting recommences, and we go on to application 20/10530, land rear of 135 Hampton Lane, Blackfield, and that is on the agenda, pages 11 to 24. And I'll just reiterate that each member's votes in the acknowledgement that they have been present for the duration of the item. And if any individual has connection issues leading to the meeting being incorporate and a vote cannot be taken, the application will be considered at a future date. Did we have any members declaring on this one?
Yes.
Is that Councillor Thorne?
Yes. Member for the Parish Council.
Thank you very much. Do you have all the information that you require?
Were there any other interests on this item?
I don't believe there were any others, no.
I thought I heard another interest of Councillor Glass.
I'm a member of Fawley Parish Council, but I have not discussed this one at all. So I'm going to continue with the meeting, if that's all right.
Thank you. I will now go to the case officer, Joe Chambers, and just to remind members there are updates on this, and I trust you've received your papers on that. So Joe Chambers, would you like to go ahead with your presentation, please?
Thank you, Chairman. So draw the members' attention to the change to the location plan, which should match the one shown on the screen now. The report has been updated following comments from the Highway Authority, who've raised no objection. I'd also draw committee's attention to a typo error on page 14. The penultimate paragraph refers to the size of number 3 April Gardens. It should in fact refer to number 2 April Gardens, which is opposite the application site. Thank you. The application is for a one-bedroom bungalow on land that currently forms part of the plot of number 135 and 137 Hampton Lane. The site has its own frontage onto Hartsgrove Avenue, which is a residential cul-de-sac. The properties fronting Hampton Lane are part of the Blackfield local shopping centre. As can be seen, the site and surroundings in the aerial photograph, which is a little bit out of date, the frontage to number 1 Hartsgrove Close is now given over to parking, and there's been a single-storey side extension to number 135 135 Hampton Lane. We can see from the layout plan the extension that's been attached to number 135. This is for 2 single-storey flats. The proposed bungalow is hipped roof with associated parking to the side, and access will be taken from Hartsgrove Avenue. The visibility display is indicated on the plan also. The layout plan shows an open plan living arrangement with a single bedroom. The elevations show a double fronted property. There are a kitchen window and bathroom window on the side elevation towards the boundary with the new flats. Lounge and bedroom window on the rear elevation facing the garden area, and no windows on the elevation towards the side boundary with number 1 Hartsgrove Close. Photos on the screen now show the frontage of the site. You can see the close board fence that's been the front boundary. We can see the fence that's been erected between the new flats. They're also visible in the same picture, and the application site. The bottom left photograph shows the former fence line between number 135 and number 137, and the other photograph on your screen shows the view from Hartsgrove Close, number 1 in the photograph, view across the frontage, and then the new flats, number 135 Hampton Lane in the background. The image on the screen now shows us the street scene photographs. Viewing from the junction of coming into the site from Hampton Lane, we can see the new flats with the site beyond. On the opposite corner, we can see the built form of April Garden properties and their high boundary wall. From the opposite end of the junction with Hartsgrove Close, we can see the high fence of number 1 Hartsgrove Close, and again we can see the built form of the April Close properties. The plan now shows the proximity of the site to the frontage and also the relationship with the new flats, and we can again see the proximity of the new flats to Hartsgrove Avenue now. Although the blue line does not join up to the red line, the agent has confirmed that there will be no gaps between the fence line that's been erected for the new flats and this application site. We can look at the spacing around the proposed bungalow. We can see that there are clear gaps, almost 2 metres to the one side and over 3.5 metres to the other. Objections have been concerned that this would be a cramped form of development. Some of the objections have referred to density. This can be measured in a number of different ways. If we look at purely the number of units per hectare, that can often lead to producing a certain type of property, which may not be what's actually required in this area. We know from the research carried out for the local plan that there is a need for smaller units and this is a one-bedroomed unit. If we sorry. I apologise then, there was a problem with the sound. Did members hear me explain that we've had objections concerning density, and I explained that the local plan, evidence prepared for the local plan shows that there's a need for smaller units? Thank you. I'll continue for that point then.
Thank you.
Right, if we also look at the ratio of built form compared to the size of the site, we can see from the figures that are set out on page 14 of the report that the proposed development compares favourably with the properties opposite. If we look at other matters to do with the setting and surroundings, we can see there's already a pattern of built development along this stretch of Hartsgrove Avenue. If we look also at the width of the proposed unit, it's 7.8 metres. This reflects the width of the elevation of number 2 April Gardens that presents towards Hartsgrove Avenue. The setback of 3 metres compares favourably with the 2.2 metres for the flats and is not dissimilar to the pattern of development opposite. The front members will have seen from the photographs shown earlier that at the moment there's high fencing across the frontage. That adds a sense of enclosure. By redeveloping the site for the bungalow, this frontage would be opened up. Creating an increased sense of space compared to the existing fence arrangements. There'd be an appreciable gap between the proposed new bungalow and the flats. And this would compare with the high boundary treatment 2 metre wall and the close proximity of buildings on the opposite side of Hartsgrove Avenue. The hitched roof design will help to minimise the overall mass of the building and reflects the majority of the design of roofs opposite and nearby. With regard to the impact on neighbours, this is a single-storey building. There are no side-facing windows towards number 1. Windows from the rear would have only oblique views, and there is high boundary treatment between the properties. On the opposite side, with regards to the flats at number 135, again there's a high fencing, and there's no concern of overlooking between the properties there. There's been concern regarding the impact of overshadowing. The new building will cause a shadow, but this will be transitional. If we look at the photos on the screen now, we can see the amenity space and parking of the new flats, the side boundary with the application site. We can also see on the photograph to the right the proximity of that building to the back of footway of Hartsgrove Avenue. The street scene photos here give us a little bit more detail of the relationship of the existing urban grain with the spacing of existing properties in relation to the overall space in the area. It is proposed to withdraw permitted development rights. The permitted development rights were also removed for the April Gardens bungalows. Overall and on balance, the application is considered acceptable and is recommended for approval. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions for the officer? Councillor Glass?
Sorry, I wasn't actually indicating, but
Okay.
My personal comment is that it's because I live in the area, it's a very handy little building for a single person. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I was reading through the papers and I looked at we were talking about slab level. I'd like the officer to explain to us, because it's something about being higher than the neighbouring property. How can we ensure that this property will sit down into the plot correctly? Because could the officer go through that for us? That would be very helpful. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so the slab level is, as the councillor just explained, how the property will sit in the plot. Number one is slightly elevated. By having a condition to agree slab details, we can ensure that the building would be positioned at an appropriate level in the street scene and with regard to the relationship with neighbours.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Could I just sort of say, well, yes, you've explained. So why in this particular instance? Is it because is it higher or lower? I'm not quite sure. If you could just go again, please.
Yes, so the site is set at a lower level to number one. The levels of Hartsgrove Avenue drop away slightly, if you can see the hand on the screen, slightly as we move along Hartsgrove. So it is essentially to ensure that the relationship with the adjoining neighbours is comfortable, that we wouldn't then risk the building being situated at a high level that could then result in the property overlooking the boundary or looking a little bit strange in the street scene.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. That explains the fact that it could be higher than the other buildings. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I thank you to the case officer, because she's actually given quite a bit of detail concerning the question that I was going to ask, and that was about amenity space. On page 14 of the report, she's actually given quite a bit of detail on the relationship between the footprint and the land around it. I just, looking at the slide that's actually still on the screen now, 3B, it does seem that there is very little amenity space for this property, particularly when you take the car parking spaces out of it. I just wanted reassurance, really, because the comparable properties that she's given us are in April Gardens, which are kind of across the road from this, and I just really wanted some reassurance that she felt that there was sufficient amenity space for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins. Yes,
my question, although it mentions it in the blurb, the officer didn't mention the telegraph pole, and I did notice it in the picture. Is that definitely going to be relocated?
Yes, the note on the plan just said that telephone pole will be relocated. The applicant has advised that this has already been, arrangements have already been put in place. The utilities have been consulted and have offered advice, but no objection. We'll notice the consultation response from Highways has recommended a condition for the visibility display, and that will ensure that the telegraph pole will not interfere with the visibility display. With regard to Councillor Corbridge's question, the rear amenity area, the space, I've calculated it, it's approximately going to be 87 square metres. The rear garden is 13.5 metres wide. If I just change the slide, you can perhaps see the dimensions a little bit clearer. So it is 13.6 metres wide and coming up to 6.5 metres in depth. So that's approximately 87 square metres. This is considered satisfactory to meet the amenity requirements of the one-bedroom unit.
Thank you, Jo.
Thank you
very much.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
Thank you, Chair. I missed the first minute or two of Jo Chambers' presentation, so I suppose that rules me out entirely for this, does it?
Would you like to comment on that, Democratic Services?
Yes, if he didn't hear part of the presentation, he would be unable to vote.
Thank you.
I will sit back and listen, and thank you.
Thank you. I don't think we have any more questions for officers. So we'll go to public speakers. I've got Mr. Jefford, who's going to speak as an objector, and Councillor McAvoy wants to speak, and if she's not here, we'll have a letter read by the legal team. So first of all, I'll go to Mr. Jefford.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Good morning. Before I begin, I think you should be aware that of the 3 supporting statements, 2 are from the tenants of 137 Hampton Lane, and were only submitted after the developer became their landlord. This development was originally submitted on smaller plots and with an 8 metre by 3 metre single bedroom. Following suggestions by objectors that it could easily be converted to a 2-bedroom, and the fact that the legend on the plan called it a 2-bedroom, the plans were changed. It now has a bedroom below the minimum standard for 2 persons, and an open plan layout which accounts for nearly 3/4 of the property, and again could be converted to 2 bedrooms following a trip to B&Q and a bank holiday weekend. This development is badly designed. Of the 77 windfall sites expected in the next 5 years, on average, Blackfield should only be expected to provide 1 every 2 years. This year alone there are 3 in the same street, including the 2 already provided by this developer. This development is not needed. Originally, 135 had 35% of the plot occupied by buildings and parking. It is now 55%. If this development is allowed, it will be 69% of the original plot. Alternatively, if you use unit density per hectare, originally it was 17, which is similar to my house and all the properties up the road. It is currently 67 and it will become 101. Even if you take the plot in isolation, it will have a density which is higher than every property in the immediate neighbourhood, including April Gardens. The government recommends a DPH of 70 for inner cities. This is overdevelopment for a residential garden in a city. Blackfield is a New Forest village. In granting permission for the existing development, the planning officer stated that the 14-metre distance to my property would mitigate additional noise and activity as a result of the intensification of use of the site. This planning officer is recommending a house within 2 metres of my property with a back door 10 metres from my bedroom window. Add to this tandem parking on a road narrower than 2 standard parking spaces, equidistant from 2 junctions, the visual intrusion, overshadowing 6 months of the year, and increased noise due to intensification of use, and you will see that this development is actually contrary to policy ENV3 sections 1, 2 and 4. Also, the NPPF section 11 paragraph 122 part D, which the planning officer fails to mention, states that the efficient use of land should take into account the desirability of maintaining an area's prevailing character and setting, including residential gardens. As custodians of the New Forest outside the National Park, you, the Council, are tasked with protecting our towns, villages and neighbourhoods from unnecessary and unwanted overdevelopment. My hope is that you, the Planning Committee, will see that the arguments of those of us who are objecting to this development are as valid as the argument of the Planning Officer in favour of the development, and that in refusing this application, you will in fact be doing so within the guidance of not only the National Planning Policy Framework, but within your own recently adopted local plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have questions, please, for Mr. Jefford? Are you indicating, Councillor Glass?
I would like to speak when the people have spoken for their second time.
Are you saying that you just want to join the debate but not ask questions?
No, I want to make a proposal after the people have spoken, the applicant and the objector.
We haven't got the applicant, we've only got the objectors. So do you want
I'd like to speak after both of those have spoken, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Benison.
Thank you, Chairman. A question to Mr. Jefford. Mr. Jefford, you said to us in your presentation that you felt it would be easy to change this one-bedroom unit into a two-bedroom unit. Could you explain how you think that could come about?
If you look at the floor plan of the building, the living area could quite easily have a partition wall placed across it and a door put in it, which would put two bedrooms next to each other. And as I said, the new bedroom which would be created would actually be larger than the bedroom that's in the house already.
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
Councillor Benison, this is speculation.
Yes.
I don't really want to continue along this line.
Yes, Chairman, I just wanted to understand how the objector thought this could be achieved, and he has told me. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Is Councillor McAvoy here, or are we going to have a letter read on her behalf?
Yes, Chairman, I'm
You're
here
with
my new internet, and I can see and hear everyone. It's wonderful.
Okay, welcome then. Would you like to say what you need to say? Thank you.
Okay, I haven't got a lot to say. I would like to comment first that the Google Earth photos which have been shown do give an impression of a very spacious area. In fact, it's a false impression. It is not that spacious. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members. I have examined the plans and object to this application. I know the site well, as does Fawley Parish Council, who also recommended refusal. That's shown in the report. 135 Hampton Lane was once a semi-detached house, subsequently to become a bank with a flat above, and now converted to two flats. A new side extension added two additional flats, a total of 4 residences, all on the same site. Now, this proposal to build a bungalow in what was the back garden is clearly an overdevelopment of the site, involving the loss of garden land and the open aspect of this part of Hartsgrove Avenue, as well as the loss of an extensive amount of soft surfacing, increasing problems with surface water runoff. This is a blatant attempt at garden grabbing. A real safety concern was not mentioned by Highways. The proposed bungalow would be in very close proximity to the sharp, blind, left-hand bend in Hartsgrove Avenue and the adjacent right turn into Hartsgrove Close. Any vehicles parked outside the bungalow would be a real safety hazard, especially for egress from Hartsgrove Close. 2 on-site car parking places have been provided for, but they are in tandem. Technically, there are 2 spaces for 2 cars, but practically, the first car to park in the space will be blocked in once the second vehicle parks behind it. A ready-made recipe for hazardous on-street parking. The last-minute revised location plan has no measurements, but it does show just how much smaller this plot is compared to surrounding plots, such as those in April Gardens, and there is an open aspect along Hartsgrove Avenue to April Gardens because you can hardly see the bungalows at all. To summarise, the following are some of the grounds on which planning permission should be refused. The inadequate plot size and cramped layout, together with the arrangement of tandem car parking on the proposed development, would be an inappropriate form of development that would have a negative impact on the street scene. The loss of existing views from neighbouring properties would adversely affect the residential amenity of neighbouring owners. The loss of soft landscaping and vegetation would reduce the attractiveness of the area and would take away from the local character of the road. The additional level of hard surfacing would conflict with what remains of the green nature of the surrounding spaces, leading to increased levels of water runoff. The proposal is contrary to the government's plans to prevent unwanted development on gardens where local people object and the character of their neighbourhoods needs to be protected. So I urge the committee to please refuse this application.
Thank you very much, Councillor McAvoy. Now, do you want to come back in here, Councillor Glass, or are you going to wait for the debate?
I was going to make a proposal. So
no, I'm not taking proposals at the moment.
Debate. So.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tony Ring.
Thank you, Chairman. Merely to fully support virtually every word that Councillor McAvoy has just uttered.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that it? Councillor Benison.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies, Alexis. I'm afraid I'm going to take an alternative view.
But can you see me now? That's the important thing.
I can indeed, Councillor McAvoy. You are coming over very clear. A wonderful sight to behold. To the application before us. This is a one-bedroomed bungalow. So we are in need of small properties. We do need these little one-bedroom ones. I'm not swayed by the fact that Mr. Jefford thinks it could be easily converted to 2 bedrooms. I think anybody doing that would make the available space very uninhabitable. Because it's a one-bedroomed unit, there will probably only be one resident car. The other space could be viewed as visitor parking.
Councillor Benison, we're not in debate yet. Are you asking a question?
Oh, I thought we were in debate, Chairman.
No, this was questions to Councillor McAvoy.
I do apologise. I'll
come back to you.
And call me back in when we're into debate.
Okay.
Apologies, Chairman.
Councillor Dunning, is it a question?
No, I thought we were in debate as well.
Okay, if there are... Councillor Hawkins, is yours a question?
No, I thought we were in debate.
Okay, fine. Then we'll go into debate. So we'll go back to Sue Benison then.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try and pick up where I left off. I think I was talking about the second car parking space possibly being used as a visitor space. Permitted development rights are going to be removed, so there will not be able to be any development into the roof space, thereby turning it into perhaps a 2-bedroom unit. I think this is quite a nice little development. The next door, with its extension of 2 flats, brings the development close to the edge of the road. This will be much the same if I go back to looking at the plan. This is in fact going to be in line with the in fact, I think it's slightly behind the line of the flats that have been built in the adjoining space. I very much will be minded, I'm afraid, sorry, Councillor McAvoy, to vote in favour of the recommendation on the paper. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Dunning.
Yes, I'm sorry, Councillor McAvoy, but I do agree with Councillor Benison. We are in need of smaller properties in the area, and I can see no reason to refuse this application, and it looks very much in keeping with the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hopkins. No, sorry, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Hawkins, do we have you there? I'll have to come back to you. Councillor Tony Ring.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to dwell on Councillor Bennison's comments, yeah, one bedroom, but that doesn't necessarily mean one occupant or no visitors. And it's highly likely that any vehicle, and certainly more than one vehicle, is going to have to either park on the road or either reverse in or out of the parking space. And looking at the bend in the road and the proximity to the junction, I think that's potentially quite a danger. And though I entirely agree, small one-bedroom properties are an attractive proposition, just dwell on the debate that occurred on the previous application in terms of garden grabbing. And in the end, in my view, overdevelopment, because you are simply robbing current open amenity space to provide a one-bedroom bungalow. But I think the main concern for me will be vehicle parking, access and egress to the property site.
Thank you. Councillor Sevier.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In fact, I won't be to it because the comments I made have been made by Sue and by Councillor Benison and by Councillor Ring about the fact that it is an area with bungalows. So I'll not continue. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Wade here, but Councillor Hawkins, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I disappeared for some reason.
Okay, fine. If you'd like to, we're in debate, okay?
Yeah, fine.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, I find that this is backland development, land grabbing, a car bunker on what otherwise would be quite a nice area. It's too small, too cramped, too contrived. I would vote against it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I totally sympathise for the view of some of the local members who are not happy with this. But actually, from a planning regulation perspective, there is no reason not to support this application. Not only do we want these types of properties, the planning rules actually are pretty clear that we should grant it. There is no, it will be going against the logic of that to decide otherwise, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Alan Glass.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I waited. When I first saw this application, I thought a single little bungalow tucked in a nice little back space, ideal. When do I move in? But having listened to the debate and seen the area locally, because I live very close to it, it's immediately behind a little row of shops off the main road through Blackfield. A lot of parking outside to use the shops. In fact, the local Blackfield bakery is there and they cook their own bread, so you can get in and out of traffic. Therefore, I would like to propose refusal for this site. I believe it's a lovely building, but totally in the wrong place. I think it would be overdevelopment in that particular spot.
Thank you. Councillor Glass, before we go to that, is there anybody else that wishes to take part in this debate? Okay, Councillor Glass, then you want to propose refusal?
Overdevelopment on that particular site.
Can I second that, please, Madam Chairman?
Yes, I'd second it too.
I'll go for Councillor Hawkins then.
I thought you would.
And your proposal for refusal is just overdevelopment. Right, I seem to have lost Councillor Glass. Can I go to Claire Upton-Brown then, please?
Yep. Members, if I could just step in and maybe probe a little further, because overdevelopment in itself needs to be a little bit more detail to actually identify what planning harm it is. So, Councillor Glass, you seem to be suggesting that you have concerns about the size of the plot in relation to other plots within the area and therefore the character of the area. So could I maybe suggest that what you might be looking for as a reason for refusal that you are wanting to vote on is that the proposed development would be out of keeping with the character of the area and therefore contrary to the relevant policies that seek to...
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
The recent building of 2 flats and being very close to the shops and sort of an infill site, I agree that it is overdevelopment, and obviously we have to put it in the correct planning legal language. But I still think that it's a nice little bungalow, but totally in the wrong place. So I go with Claire Upton Brown's reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Before we go to the votes, can I come back to Mr. Jefford? You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I didn't actually have anything prepared for this bit, but I would point out that the planning officer failed to mention that this site will be overlooked by the upper floors of 135 and 137 Hampton Lane. So there'll be no privacy whatsoever if it was allowed to happen. Also, at the moment, I can tell you that if anybody parks on that road outside, because of its narrowness, even the dustbin lorries have to mount the pavement on the other side to get past. And during the development that has already occurred, it was obvious that anybody with a van who wants to park on that road will park on the pavement. You've also got to bear in mind that if this happens, the majority of residents in Hartsgrove Close are elderly and some have walking difficulties, but more importantly, there's a residential care home at number 12 which has as its residents severely disabled people who also are blocked by people parking on that footpath. It's a case of you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. That's all I have to say really about it.
Thank you. Councillor McAvoy, 1 minute.
Thank you, Chairman. Really almost a question. I wasn't really aware that a need for a smaller unit would actually override government's proposals to prevent unwanted development where gardens are being backfilled and local people objected. So I will just reiterate that this proposal is contrary to the government's plans to prevent unwanted development on gardens where local people object and the character of their neighbourhood needs to be protected. You cannot avoid the fact that this is a back garden grabbing infill development, completely out of character, I would add, if there's going to be conditions, if you are going to approve it, I would be seeking double yellow lines from Hampshire County Council to prevent parking along that dangerous intersection. Again, please refuse this application.
Thank you very much, Councillor McAvoy. We will go to the vote now. I'm aware that some people didn't hear all of the presentation, and Mr. Michael...
I'm sorry, it's Andrew Kinghorn here. Can I just in there, picking up on your point that people didn't hear the presentation, I wasn't entirely clear when Councillor Hawkins said that he didn't get all the presentation. I wasn't sure if he actually dropped out. And if he did, then of course it wouldn't be appropriate for him to second this motion or vote. Great if he could clarify.
Yes, I did hear all the presentation. I just dropped out briefly when we were debating.
Is that okay?
Chairman, yes, as long as he heard all the debate, that's fine.
Okay, and I know Councillor Cheery left for a while, so he'll be abstaining. So, members, we have a proposal to refuse this application from Councillor Glass, and that has been seconded by Councillor Hawkins. So we are voting for refusal. So it's for, against or abstain. So Councillor Anne Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
Against.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
Against.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
For.
Councillor Kate Crizell.
Against.
Councillor Arthur Davis.
Abstain,
You're
Chairman, because
abstaining.
I missed the first part of the presentation.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, thank you. Councillor Barry Dunning.
Against.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins. Councillor David Hawkins. Right, I'll have to come back. Councillor Maureen Holding.
Against the development.
So you're voting to refuse?
Yes.
So it's 4.
4.
Councillor Mahmood Kangarani. Councillor Tony Ring.
4.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
Against.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
4.
Councillor Malcolm Wade.
Against.
Thank you.
I'm back in again, Chairman.
Okay, so can I take your vote, please?
Yes, it's for refusal.
And Councillor Kangarani, are you there? Councillor Kangarani?
I can't see him in the attendees.
So I'm going to go for against, and I think that makes it equal.
Yeah.
Can we have that confirmation, please?
Yes, that is correct. I've got 7 votes for, 7 votes against, and a couple of abstentions.
Okay. So I will have the deciding vote, and I will go against. So that motion has been lost.
Yes, so we need a new motion on the table.
Okay, so we're now going to go to vote for the recommendation, which is to grant. Can I have a proposer?
Yes, Chairman, I will propose that recommendation.
And a seconder.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'm quite happy to second that proposal. And Sevier.
Sevier. Then we'll go back to the vote, members, and this is to grant the application, and it's been proposed by Councillor Benison and seconded by Councillor Sevier. So this is to grant. Councillor Anne Bellows.
Refuse. Refuse.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Refuse.
Can you say for, against, or abstain?
Oh, sorry. Against.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Benison.
For.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
For.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Against.
Councillor Kate Crazell.
Again, sorry, for.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
For.
Councillor Alan Glass.
Against.
Councillor David Hawkins.
Against.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
Against.
Councillor Kangarani.
Well, I'm not voting on lost connection for the past 20 minutes. Therefore,
Thank you. Councillor Ring.
Against.
Was that against?
Against, yes.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
For, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
Against.
Councillor Malcolm Wade.
For.
This is the same. It's equal. I have the
Chairman,
deciding
you have voted.
vote. Sorry.
Chairman, have you voted?
Did I vote? I voted for.
Thank you.
I can confirm that 7 votes for, 7 votes against. So I'm assuming you're going to use your casting vote to carry the motion to grant?
I will do that, yes, thank you.
So the motion is carried to grant permission.
Thank you very much, everybody. We'll just take a short break again so that the speakers can leave. Thank you. Just 3 or 4 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, this is Paul Dunning. I just want to check that you can hear me as a speaker.
Yes, I'd like to declare that this planning committee meeting will recommence. Thank you. And this is for 6 Bay Tree Gardens, Marchwood. The agenda pages are pages 25 to 30, and the application number is 20/10551. And can I just reiterate that each member votes in the acknowledgement that they have been present for the duration of the item. If any individuals had connection issues leading to the meeting being incorrect and a vote which cannot be taken, the application will be considered at a future meeting. And also to remind you that you need to have been present for the presentation and the debate before you can join in the vote at the end. I hope that's clear. So did we have any interest on this one? Nobody's indicating interest on this one. Okay, I'll go then for the presentation. Mr. Stephen Belly, would you like to give your presentation, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Can you see the presentation on the screen?
We can, thank you very much.
Okay, so this is an application for single-storey site extension and a new boundary wall and landscaping and the use of the land as residential garden. Members will recall that this application was referred to them at the July 2020 Planning Committee, at which time members debated the issues surrounding the application, and whilst they had no concerns regarding the impact of the development in the street scene, they were concerned about the impact on the neighbouring property, particularly in relation to the issue surrounding the chimney that was proposed at that time. So the current application before you, Chairman, is to for the same development, except that the chimney has now been removed from the proposal. But in terms of the floor plan and the arrangements within the site, they are the same as they were presented to you in July. So the application site is on your screen. Standard estate type development with this property having quite a large side garden visible from the Bay Tree Gardens cul-de-sac. That's an aerial photograph showing the site in relation to the surrounding land. This is the superseded block plan, and you can just see the nib of the chimney there. That's the proposed extension, single-story extension on the side of number 6. That's the existing plan. That's the existing floor plans. That's the original proposed plan with the chimney, which has now been marked superseded, as you'll see. That's the floor plan, including the chimney, which you can see the chimney breast there in the flue pipe. That was the original site layout plan, which again is superseded. Existing elevation again, And this is the amended site layout plan, so same footprint except for the chimney. You can see, members, that the chimney has now been deleted from the scheme, and you can see that on the ground floor plan as well. There's the proposed elevations. And there are some photographs showing the relationship of the public highway, so the extensions on this side. This is the existing garden boundary. The extension again coming this way towards us. Again, chimney in that location, and you can see the neighbouring property there. And the rear garden and its relationship with the neighbours. And that's the land to be enclosed, and I think there's another photograph showing the type of boundary wall that would be used to enclose together with landscaping. So the proposal, members, is for a single-storey extension. The plans have now been amended, and as far as officers are concerned, the proposal is acceptable. The conditions are as set out before you on page 29, and I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I go to Councillor Sevier?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a quick query. Now that the chimney has been removed from the planning permission, which is obviously everybody's very pleased about, I think, the committee had great concerns about it last time. The question is, should we remove permitted development rights? Because could they actually put a chimney in the future as permitted development without coming to the planning committee? That is my question, because we don't want that to happen. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
In response to that, Chairman, I would say that it's a fair point, and just for clarity and for the absence of any doubt whatsoever, there's no reason why members can't impose a condition requiring there to be no chimney or flue pipe inserted into the extension hereby permitted. It would be unreasonable to do that for the main house, but certainly for the extension, just as a matter of clarity and just to make sure there's absolutely no doubt, then the member has a fair point to make, and so we would suggest to you an additional condition just restricting the rights of any additional chimneys or flue pipes being inserted into the extension.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions for Mr. Belli? Thank you. Then we'll go to the applicant. Mr. Dunning, you have 3 minutes. If you'd like to speak, please.
Good morning. I just want to check you can hear me. I think you confirmed that before.
We can. Thank you.
Thank you. So good morning. As the applicant, I felt I needed to make myself available to the committee today, especially since the deferment of this application was such a surprise to me. And so in the interest of expediting the process and avoiding any further delay, I'm here to represent the application in its modified form. We put this application in to ensure that our growing young family could continue to enjoy life in Marchwood for many years to come. Our original application was made on the 23rd of December last year, and stockings hung by the chimney with care was due to be part of our family's tradition. However, as has been discussed, the only point of issue in the previous meeting was the chimney, and we would dearly have liked this to have remained. Based on the case officer's report, the Chief Planning Officer's submissions during the July planning meeting concerning the remit of the planning committee in this regard, and even the deferment of this application, we felt we would have had strong grounds to appeal any decision against, and now, as it may seem, any decision to impose a restriction. Nevertheless, with no other design alternatives available, and the interest of swift progress, our agents submitted plans the very next day with the flue removed. You will see that this has resulted in the single objection being retracted. The previous support that the application enjoyed remains and has been strengthened by further representations. None of the other 8 properties immediately adjacent to the property have commented on the previous application or its modified form, which indicates their acceptance, and indeed I can confirm this with conversations with my neighbours. Having considered all aspects of the application in our previous meeting, the committee stated that the application was generally sound and found no other points of concern. Therefore, with broad support from neighbours, the case officer, and the only point of issue removed, I urge the committee to avoid further delay and grant this application per the case officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunning. Do we have questions from members, please? The members will move to debate. Councillor Barry Dunning.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to point out that I'm not related to the applicant. With the removal of the chimney, the reason for refusal has been fulfilled, and I think I'll be voting for approval for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sue Benison.
Thank you, Chairman. This application is in my ward. I did listen to the Marchwood Parish Council's debate when they debated this, and the main issue, well, really the only issue was that of the chimney. So I would like to thank officers for negotiating with the applicant and the applicant's agreement to remove this chimney, and I thank Councillor Sevier for pointing out that perhaps it would be a good idea for the extra condition regarding the chimney to this extension itself. So with that, I'm quite happy with this application now, and I will be minded to go with the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Glass.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. What I was going to say has been said. I'm glad to see the back of another rather dirty wood-burning stove, because they've now been proven to be very, very dirty machines. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Madam Chairman, I see I'm the last one on the list that's down, so therefore I will propose that we accept the recommendation on the paper, but include the extra condition to avoid any anything in the future. Thank you. To do with the chimney, Madam Chairman, that has been proposed by the officer, or that we should include. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I'd like to second that, Chairman.
Councillor Dunning.
Yes, sorry, I thought we would press RTS to speak, and I was going to second the proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Annie Bellows, you're having trouble getting into the RTS, but would you like to say something?
Yeah, I was going to totally support this now that the concern with the chimney, and it had been my concern that it was going to be, it could be built at a later date, but obviously Anne Sivier's brought that up, so that's great. Yeah, can't find my RTS, but I'll have to have a word with Daniel.
Thank you. Can I just go back to Stephen Belli or Claire Upton Brown? Can we add that as a condition, please?
Yes, Chairman. As far as I'm concerned, the condition would read that no additional chimneys or flue pipes shall be inserted into the extension hereby approved without the further grant of planning permission, or words to that effect. And the reason would be in the interest of preserving the amenity of neighbouring properties.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Dunning, I invite you to sum up, and you have 1 minute.
So I would query whether that's a legal restriction on my enjoyment of the property, especially in mind of the planning officer's previous comments from building control, that everything has been done in accordance with planning and building regulations. So that would be a very disappointing amendment to this application.
Well, that's what we'll be voting on, to approve this application, but it will include that condition. So members, I will now go to the vote. I just need to remind you all that you would have to vote. You need to have been part of the debate or presentation, and both. So we have a proposal to accept the recommendation, which is to grant, and that is from Councillor Sevier, and that is with conditions, and that is to be seconded by Councillor Benison. So if we can go to the vote to approve, to for, against or abstain. Councillor Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Benison.
For.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
Against.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
For.
Councillor Kate Crizell.
For.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
For.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
For.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
4.
Councillor Mahmood Kangarani.
4.
Councillor Tony Ring.
4.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
4, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Michael Thierry.
4.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
4.
Councillor Malcolm Wade.
4.
And I'm 4. So that's being granted. Can I have confirmation of the vote, please?
Hello, Chairman. I've got 16 votes for, 1 vote against, so that carries the motion to approve.
Thank you very much. Before we go on to the next one, we'll just have a few minutes out so that our speaker can leave. Thank you. Okay, we now go to application 19/11369, pages 7 to 10 on your agenda, 25 to 27 Southampton Road. And you know from the past we've already voted on this, and the recommendation is here to give them some extra time. So we'll go.
Can we have interest? Can we have interest on the item?
Interest. Sorry, Councillor Ring, you have interest?
Thank you indeed. Yes, as I said first, I'm on Ringwood Town Planning and have voted in favour of the development, so I won't take part.
Thank you very much. We'll go straight to the presentation then from Mr. Belli, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you see the presentation on your screen, Chairman? Yes, thank you. Members, you will recall that this application was referred to you in March of this year, and members had a full and detailed debate regarding the impact of this proposal on the street scene and in terms of the impact on any neighbouring properties. So essentially the proposal was for a roof extension above the existing premises, which the applicant now uses as an ice cream parlour on the one side and a cafe restaurant on the other side. And it was to propose a number of stories on top of that existing facade, and also to tidy up the facade with some additional improvements in terms of the appearance of it. And members agreed that, and they voted in favour of it, subject to a variety of conditions, and it was also subject to the usual condition requiring habitat mitigation against additional recreational impacts, as is usual. Following on from that, we had some difficulties in actually arranging a 106 agreement for a variety of reasons, not the applicant's fault, I would hasten to add. And on that basis, in the meantime, we also had a new template allowing applicants to submit a unilateral undertaking to say that they would pay the submission of the fee for habitat mitigation to put towards our recreational projects, they would pay that upfront, and then on the basis of that we would then be able to issue the planning permission. So that's a streamlined procedure which now all applicants can use, and we were in the process of doing that, and then the phosphates issue raised its head, and as members will be aware, phosphates is now a limiting factor on residential development in the Avon Valley, and until such time that there's a mitigation scheme in place, we're not in a position to release planning permissions for residential development. And on that basis, we have to hold this development up until that time has been reached and we have that mitigation scheme in place. So, because in technical terms your earlier recommendation required the 106 to be agreed within a period of 6 months from the date of your resolution, that has now or is about to expire, and so I discussed this with the applicant and suggested to the applicant that we actually hold this application in abeyance pending the resolution of the phosphates issue, and the unilateral undertaking is ready to go. The applicants have agreed to pay the money. It's just, in my view, not appropriate to take their money in advance of us being able to issue the planning permission. So I've suggested to the applicant, and the applicant has agreed, that we hold this in abeyance until March next year. So the recommendation, members, is just to do that, to hold it in abeyance until such time as the phosphates issue has been resolved, and the recommendation is until March 2021 to hold it in abeyance. And it also presupposes, Chairman, and I would point out that any permission will need to be the subject to any new procedures or undertakings or agreements or what have you, or conditions relating to phosphates and mitigation, and for that matter to be delegated to the authority, to the head of planning to deal with. So it does presuppose that. It refers to it in the recommendation, but it's not particularly explicit. So just wanted to make that absolutely clear. So the recommendation is before you, Chairman, and I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Belli. Questions? Councillor Sevier, are you trying to put something up there?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was going to ask a question, but then it was answered, and therefore I tried to take it off again unsuccessfully. Thank you.
Okay. I can't see any more questions coming up, so we can move to debate. Do we want to debate this? Has anybody got anything to say?
I did ask a question, actually, Christine.
Okay, Councillor Kangari, I can't see you on there, but yes, if you'd like to go ahead with your question.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, well, it's not a question. It's a question to the officer then.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Okay. We'll have that then before debate.
Sure. My question was, did it have to come to the planning committee again, or when they get their phosphorus report and it was agreeable, they just go straight to approval?
That is correct, Chairman. We're asking for delegated authority for this matter to be dealt with to the head of planning, so there's no need for it to come back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can't see any more questions. I have a message from Kate Crisell that she's lost connection, so will abstain. I think Councillor Sevier, you're trying to send me another. Is this a question for the officer or for debate?
But no, I thought are we heading into debate? And if we're not debating, can I suggest that this is just housekeeping for the planning department, and then we should give our support to the planning department by agreeing this. But obviously nobody else has put their name up, so and nobody still is not putting their name up. So may I suggest that we accept this proposal or application and hand the matter to our very competent planning department.
Thank
and
you.
I would like to second. I would like to second that. That's
is that Barry?
Yeah, I'd like to second.
Okay.
Thank you.
In that case, we'll go to the vote. Before we go to the vote, can I just ask Councillor Michael Thierry, did you have interest in this one?
No, Madam Chairman, I'm not a member of Ringwood Town Council.
Oh, right, okay. Fine, thank you very much. In that case, we'll go to the vote. So to accept the recommendation, and that's been proposed by Councillor Sevier and seconded by Councillor Dunning. So we are voting for, against or abstain. Councillor Anne Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Benison.
4.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
4.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
4.
Councillor Kate Cressell is not voting because she lost connection. Councillor Arthur Davies.
4.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
4.
Councillor Alan Glass.
4.
Councillor David Hawkins.
4.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
4.
Councillor Mahmood Kangarani.
4.
Councillor Tony Ring.
Abstain.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
4, Madam Chair.
Councillor Michael Terry.
4.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
4.
Councillor Malcolm Wade.
4.
And again, my vote is 4, so that's carried. Can you confirm that, please, for me?
Hello, I can confirm, yes, the motion is carried in line with the officer recommendation. I've got 15 votes for.
Thank you, fine. Members, do you want a break before we go on to the next 2 items of about 5 minutes?
Would you go on, Chairman?
I'm fine.
Go on. Okay, that's fine. So the next item on the agenda, item 4, is Southampton International Airport. We will be getting a presentation again from Stephen Belli, and we will have Councillor Michael Harris wants to contribute after after Stephen Belli has done his presentation. So over to you, please, Stephen.
Thank you, Chairman. I've been called many things in my time as a planning officer, but never a councillor. Not that that's a slur on anybody. The application is submitted to Eastleigh Borough Council for a decision, and we are a consultee in this process, as are many others. The proposal is in front of you and on your papers, and it essentially is for a runway extension of 164 metres in length, together with an additional area of car parking and a structure that will prevent any blast from jet engines being emitted outside the development boundary site. So that's the proposal before you. It did come to your earlier committee in February of this year, and it was deferred at that time because the applicants had clearly not provided additional or sufficient information to satisfy the consultees such as Natural England and the Highway Authority and others. And on that basis, it was agreed to defer consideration of this until such time as the application was in more detailed form. That has now been done, so this is in effect a second consultation on this application. There have been some changes to the application. The size of the car park has been reduced, and but the position of the runway extension is exactly the same as is the red line, and so that's the predominant change. The applicants have also added to their socio-economic impact statements, and they've taken into account the impact of COVID-19, and they've taken into account some of the other comments that were made by statutory consultees. So for those members who don't know, this is where the airport is in relation to the district council boundary at Totton. That's probably the nearest point. So it is north of the motorway there, next to the existing built-up area of Eastleigh, and to the north of Southampton. The red line site is as it's shown there, with the blue land as well. So again, you've got the train station with the railway sidings, and then you've got Eastleigh town in that location, and then playing fields running south of that, and then open countryside on this side. That's the amended plan for the car park extension. I don't expect members to count the number of spaces, but that's the proposal, and there's some additional landscaping that was inserted along this road boundary, separating the car park from the town centre or the town of Eastleigh. and the orange area, that's showing the airport runway extension. And the purpose of this is, as set out in the papers, supporting the application to allow more flexibility in the use of the airport and to make the best use of it as a regional airport hub. So this extension to the runway will allow for that to happen. Because at the present time there are limitations on the number of or the type of airplanes that can use the runway. As you'll see, the site backs onto the railway siding, so there's no residential development in that area. And that's the extent of the presentation on slides. As far as the proposal is concerned, members will be aware that the airport is at some distance from the district council, but nevertheless there are cross-boundary impacts that might happen with a proposal of this nature. I've set out for you in your papers on page 47 onwards some of the concerns and some of the issues that and some of the impacts, particularly in relation to ecological impact, noise impact, impact on traffic, particularly in relation to the number of vehicles driving to and from the airport, as well as the actual number of airplanes using the site, and any impact on air quality, both from a localized impact and perhaps more widely in terms of air quality. The ecological impact is quite significant in terms of this proposal, but the view that the applicants are taking is that those ecological impacts can be managed, as can the impacts on noise and also the impact on the construction period of when this work happens. And my conclusions have set out for you a balanced picture, because essentially what we're recommending to members is that they support this application subject to the various environmental considerations and caveats and any recommendations that Eastleigh Borough Council planning officers might make in relation to the controlling the impact of the airport extension, particularly on noise impact, air quality, traffic impact as well, and on particularly in relation to ecological impact. So the recommendation is couched in those terms, Chairman. There are still some outstanding consultative responses awaited from Highways England and from Natural England as well, and they are a key consultee, and those are key considerations that the planning officers of Eastleigh Borough Council will need to take into account. But you'll also see there that I've put a flavour of the main comments that we received, and you'll see that the Hampshire County Council as an organisation have supported the proposal. You'll also see from a technical point of view that the Highway Authority and the Flood Authority and the Environment Agency have no objections, but that Winchester City Council do have certain concerns. So Chairman, it's not my application. I'll do my best to answer questions, and I'm open to those now. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we just note Democratic Services, Councillor Michael Thierry and Malcolm Wade are obviously county councillors, and I know Malcolm Wade wants to speak. So have you noted that?
Would you just like to get them to announce their interest, please?
Okay, Councillor Thierry.
A member of Hampshire County Council, which is stakeholder, and have made observations on this application.
And Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I am also a member of Hampshire County Council, so it is a similar interest to Councillor Thierry, but also that one of the returning flight paths is over Hythe and Dibdin. But I don't believe that that is necessarily a prejudicial issue. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Unless the officers tell me otherwise.
Thank you. We do have Councillor Michael Harris that wants to speak to us, but does anybody have any questions for Mr. Belli first?
Yes, Chairman, I put in an RTS for a question.
Okay, Councillor Benison then, please.
Thank you. Mr. Belli, the report tells us there are no scheduled nighttime flights. If there were to be a change in that, would that be a fresh application?
Chairman, it's very likely that there will be a very complex legal agreement as well as a whole host of planning conditions, but I'm pretty sure that I've seen within the papers and within the proposal that the applicants are happy to accept the restrictions on night flying, and that those will be discussed and negotiated properly as part of the 106 agreement. I'm looking through the planning statement because I think it mentions night flying is currently, there are some restrictions on night flying at the moment. If you just bear with me a second, I'll see if I can find those.
This is in the report.
Yeah, it was my understanding that there are restrictions on nighttime flying and that the applicants will not be extending, not be seeking any extension to night flights, so that there will be proper safeguards, and that if there are any, if there's any stepping outside that, then they will need to come back and either vary that condition or agreement or apply for a new application.
Yeah, I did see that somewhere in the report. I just don't know which page it was on.
It was page 47, the bottom of page 47.
Ah, yes. Yes, that's what I was looking for, Chairman.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman, for that.
Thank you. Councillor Kangarani, do you have questions for Mr. Belli?
Yeah, thank you. Given the runway extension, bringing the boundary very close to the railway, is that it could be, if the plane not land early enough, it might run off the runway and hit the railway. How typical it is, the boundary of the runway and the neighbouring premises?
Well, I can only comment on my other knowledge about airports and generally, and if you look at the photographs of Heathrow Airport and Gatwick and other airports, you'll see that runways do very often come close to boundaries. There are significant safety issues in relation to air traffic and air traffic control, and these are matters which would have to be dealt with as part of any a proposal like this outside the planning regulations, I would suggest. All I would say is that the relevant authorities will have to be consulted, and if they are happy with that, then it's not for us as a planning authority to stand in the way of this. So I can only reassure the member that there are plenty of other safeguards in place, that we should not be concerned about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arthur Davies.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Following on from Councillor Kangarani and the answer that Stephen Belli gave, some years back, I'll keep it quick, I was going to work on the motorway and there was a plane on the motorway. A plane overshot. And I'm sure, I don't think anyone died or anything, but it is sort of concerning that we got a railway intersection one side and the M27 the other. Just a thought. And for safety reasons.
Okay, I think that's the same at Gatwick as well. You have a railway line running beside the airport. Councillor Barry Dunning.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to point out that the reason that plane came off the runway might have been because it was too short. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Then I'd like to bring in Councillor Michael Harris, please. Would you like to present your report to us, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. I don't have a report per se. I do have some comments to add to this debate, if I could, at this time. I speak with the hat on as a cabinet member on New Forest District Council with responsibility for the local economy, and so you'll see exactly where I'm coming from. This is the second time this committee have considered this report. You sent it back in February, as we've heard earlier, because there were, some work hadn't been done. There was some loose ends. Things hadn't been looked at. This time round, it comes back to you, and indeed they've looked at it. We've heard already the reduced car parking. It's come down from 600 spaces to 470. Ecological and environmental considerations have been put in place, and reports have been produced and looked at. Other people have been consulted, and again, we were told earlier that lots of people, Hampshire County Council and others, very much in support. There was only one against, and that was Winchester. They are the only people to say they're objecting to this. At this point, I think I'd like to declare an interest in this application as somebody who uses Southampton Airport for both business and pleasure. It's a great airport, it's very efficient. When I have to fly to America, I have to go to Heathrow Airport. I could go to Gatwick, but honestly, do you want to drive to Gatwick to fly anywhere? Surely not. If you want to go to North America, then you'll go to Gatwick, you'll go to Heathrow, and for other, if I want to see my grandchildren, then I've got to fly to Australia, and so again, I will go to Heathrow. But for all other local European destinations, Southampton Airport is fantastic. So, the other thing I'd like you to consider is that we're living in extraordinary times. We all know about the pandemic and the effect it's having on the New Forest, on Hampshire, on the United Kingdom, on, let's be honest, the world. No one is immune from this. As we come out of it, and we surely will, we will come out of the pandemic, the economy and trade between nations will be essential. This nation, the United Kingdom, is going to have an interesting time starting in January 2021, but that's another subject, not for this committee. But in terms of the local economy in the New Forest, having this airport extension, approving this would be, I think, very good for our local economy. But the thing I wanted to say is that in your recommendation, the recommendation in the report is that you don't have any objection, that you say, you know, you let it pass, you don't object to it. I would urge the committee, through your good offices, Madam Chairman, I would urge the committee to support this proposal, to actively engage and say we support, we want to see this happen. It's vital for all our futures, for the futures of our children, because they're going to be the ones who need to have the jobs and the work and the trade with our European neighbours in the future. So I'm going to be quiet now, Madam Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity of allowing me to speak to the committee. As I say, I would urge you to support this, not just to give it a sort of a nod through, but to be actively engaged in pushing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Members, do you wish to carry on now and debate this? I've got Councillor Wade and Councillor Kangarani. I know Councillor Wade has something to say if you'd like to make your comments.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting situation. There's environmental issues, but there's also economic issues. And strangely, I'm actually going to support some of the things that Councillor Harris has said. A local, vibrant airport is important for local people, both from the perspective of business, but also it's much nicer going to Southampton Airport than to drive to London. Yes, there are some environmental issues in increasing any airport, but there are also massive environmental issues with the carbon footprint of driving up to Gatwick or indeed even Heathrow, which having, although the destinations, sometimes you do have to drive to London, but there are many destinations that are covered by Southampton that you would have to drive up to London for if it didn't do it. The important thing, Chairman, in this is that there has been ecological and noise impact issues to bring mitigation and to try and mitigate the actual impact of the airport itself, the extension to the airport itself. So, you know, we need to look at this on balance. Yes, there is an impact, an environmental impact to the local area, but I believe that the flight paths over Hythe and Dibden will not be drowned out by an incessant number of planes. I remember asking that question when it first came up. The issue really is convenience for local people and business. There is an effect to the local area environmentally, but bringing mitigation to stop that, because the benefits for the environment, but not having to drive up to London with all these cars and things, I think also needs to be taken into consideration. On balance, it's a positive thing, and we should support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kangarani.
Okay, can I have a go in a minute? I got one in before anyone.
Sorry, Councillor Kangarani, can I go to you?
Is that my turn now? Okay. Actually, that's just only a speculation. I mean, if it happened tomorrow, Bournemouth Airport was to expand, would you have the same argument can be used for it as well? Because obviously, Bournemouth have huge implication on the local economy as well. I just wondered.
That's not part of this. It's not part of this application. That's totally different. It's not even the same county. So we'll move over from that one if you don't mind. We'll go to Councillor Anne Sevier.
Can I have my go in a minute, please, Councillor Clark?
I can't see you on there. I'm just going down the list. Councillor Anne Sevier. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. My question is actually to our head of planning. That's where I wanted to put this question. If we change the wording on the recommendation, and there is a public inquiry, or somebody, an MP asks for a public inquiry, and we have a public inquiry about this, will we then need to attend if we are in support? And will that? I'm just thinking ahead. Or whether we actually keep our wording very simple. Thank you. Hopefully Claire can help.
Thank you. Would you like to come in, Claire? Okay. I'm not getting a response from Claire Upton Brown.
Hi, sorry, I'm just having a connectivity problem, so I've just swapped computers.
Okay.
Apologies for that. So in terms of where we are, if there were a public inquiry, that would be because either the District Eastleigh Borough Council had refused planning permission or there was a call-in. In those circumstances, I suspect that the District Council would come to us and want us to work with them on a position on that. So in terms of advising the members this morning, I think it's quite safe to make the observation back to Eastleigh Borough Council that's set out on the agenda, and I'm sure if there were a call-in situation, Eastleigh would look to all the adjoining authorities to support them in any public inquiry.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Can I ask you, can we be more robust in our support for this in the recommendation?
If as a committee you feel that we are not being robust enough, then it's for you as a committee to instruct me how you want me to respond to this consultation.
Okay, I'll ask the committee at the end of this. I'm sorry, Alan Glass, I haven't got you on here, so I'm just going down the list. It's Councillor Sue Bennison next.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, my question was around this subject that's just been spoken about. In other words, are we going to change our recommendation from raise no objection to actively support? And that's still the question, I think. Are we going to do that?
Thank you. Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I very much would like to support what Councillor Harris and indeed Councillor Wade have just said. I personally, I'm assuming all councillors received a letter and some further explanation from the operations director at Southampton Airport, and amongst the paperwork that he sent was a comparison of flying from Southampton, from driving to Gatwick and flying both down to Bordeaux, and it gives you a it gives you a comparison about the emissions. I think that my opinion is that although there are obviously very serious environmental factors associated with any increase in size of any airport or any number of aeroplanes, on balance, we have to vote in favour of helping something that will support our local economy, particularly now, as Councillor Harris has said. I think there's no question here. I am fully in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Annie Bellows.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I agree with Michael Harris and also Malcolm Wade's comments. We need to support this, as it's not only a vibrant passenger terminal, but also used by businesses and freight, and our mail is delivered here. We do need this expansion, and I think we need to give it our full support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm now picking you up, Councillor Glass.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A lot of what I was going to say has now been said, but I'd like to propose that we strongly support this movement, because before I retired I used to do a lot of work in Europe. I could fly to Belgium, have a meeting and fly back in one day. This reduced need for hotels, need for driving up the country, goodness knows what on carbon footprint. So I think it's a marvellous thing that would help the economy of the area. So I think we should strongly support this, and I would like to make that proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kangarani.
Yes, thank you. Although I'm not contemplating to refuse the plan, however, this argument about the travelling, what happened that other people from other parts of the country want to go to Heathrow, then turn up into Southampton Airport, because maybe people change airports, then more cars going to drive from further away to Southampton rather than just the local people. Just a point.
Thank you for making that point. Obviously, we can't go into customers' individual arrangements on how they travel. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I appreciate that Alan Glass has put forward a proposal, but we need a bit more substance, I think. Yeah. And I think perhaps we might go back to head of planning, or if we can think of some words ourselves. Because if we're going to strongly support or just support, there is a difference, and we would need to have some sort of background and some reasons put into the recommendation, Madam Chairman.
Can I go back then, please, to Claire Upton-Brown? Can you add to this recommendation, or would we have to defer it and put in a new one?
No, members of the committee, it's more than appropriate for you to conclude this morning that you would like me to write to Eastleigh Borough Council confirming your position, or our position as the council, on the consultation they've sent to us.
Thank you very much. Members, I hope you're in agreement with that. I think the consensus is that we all want to really, really support this more robustly. So I'm going to go to the vote now. And we have Councillor Sevier that wants to propose that we accept the recommendation.
No, actually, Alan Glass put a proposal in, and I just queried it about making sure the proposal was actually wordy enough for me to be confident, because the difference between very strong, and support is well, anyway, that's just me.
Okay. So I just want to clarify that with Claire Upton-Brown, that our feelings are very strongly in support of this. And you can come up.
Say the reasons I would say strongly support is for reduction of carbon footprint by use of cars and various transport methods, business and leisure development of this region, and assistance with putting this region into the fast transport system of the world. Thank you.
Yes. So, Chair, just to confirm, we will respond to Eastleigh Borough Council on behalf of the District Council, confirming that we strongly support the proposal because of its reduction in the carbon footprint, the role it will play in supporting the local economy, and also the role it will play in making this area competitive within the global economy because of the presence of regional airport within this area.
Exactly what I meant, but far better worded. Thank you very much.
Okay. Democratic Services, do you actually want us to take a vote on that? Or can we just take the general acceptance that councillors are all in agreement?
I think I'm happy to take it as accepted, but maybe members that don't agree with it can comment in the RTS, and then we can deal with it that way.
Okay, so I'll just wait a few seconds to see if anyone comments on the RTS. So nobody's putting in any objections, so we as members are happy to accept that recommendation with the added support. Is that okay, Karen?
That's fine. The recommendation in the report has been amended, and Claire has clarified that it strongly support, and she's listed the reasons.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll move on then to agenda item 5, review of local information requirements for planning applications. That's on pages 51 to 92 on the agenda, and I'll move across again to Claire Upton-Brown for your report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is quite a detailed report, so I'm not going to go through the contents of the appendices and trust that you will have looked at those. So the reason for the report is it felt appropriate to reinstate local lists to support planning applications, and I think it's particularly important at this key point in time, given that we've just had a local plan adopted. We're now beginning to enter discussions on a number of our strategic sites, and there are significant complexities involved in those sites, and it's important that we're very clear the sort of information and evidence that we need to have submitted to support those applications and enable them to become legally validated. The report sets out the arrangement for the consultation, and also within the appendices, the draft requirements that I'm proposing are included within the local list. Now, I acknowledge that on the face of it, those requirements look quite daunting, but those requirements will not be relevant for a number of the applications. So members, what I'm seeking agreement from you this morning is that you agree as a planning committee that I can publish the draft local list for consultation, and that consultation will happen both with internal consultees, external consultees, our regular agents, developers on our strategic sites, and the town and parish councils. What will happen is that consultation will take place over a 6-week period, and then following the conclusion of that consultation, a further report will come back to planning committee. I'm hoping that it will be possible to bring it back to the November meeting, because I think it is important that we get this local list in place as quickly as possible. And at the meeting that the report is brought back to, I will seek agreement for you to adopt the local list. Thank you, committee.
Sorry, I was muted. Councillor Malcolm Wade, do you have a question?
Yes, please, Chairman. It's for Claire, really. How does this interact with the government's proposed changing to the planning system in reference to house, I think it's house building, and their argument over, you've got to build over 50 units before a developer can put in social housing. I mean, is there any, am I totally off base on this, or is there some interaction between the two?
So, Councillor Wade, the things are slightly independent. So the consultation that closes on the 1st of October does propose raising the threshold for the requirement for affordable housing, and how that would then interrelate with a local list is that you would only need to submit information around your affordable housing on applications over whatever that threshold is, whether it's 40 or 50, if that consultation then goes forward and changes legislation. So there will be an interrelationship if that consultation is taken forward into legislation, and that may require a slight modification to our triggers on what pieces of information will be submitted, but it won't actually change the local requirement list.
Well, let's hope it doesn't get any traction, because it's an awful idea. Thank you very much for the response.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Does anybody wish to debate this further? Councillor Kangarani, a couple of questions.
That was actually, I was going to ask Claire a couple of questions after the formal meeting is over, if that's okay.
Oh, okay, so it's not about this application then. Okay, members, are we happy to accept the recommendation en bloc? If anybody disagrees, they can let me know in RTS. Okay, for democratic services then, that recommendation I believe is accepted by all members.
Yeah, those two recommendations.
So two recommendations.
First one to go out to consultation, and then the second one is to bring the report back.
Okay, that's fine. Does anybody disagree with any of that? Are we happy to still go ahead and support both of those? Okay, they both have our support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we'll move then to item 6, which is dates of meetings, and the time on those is 9 o'clock. That depends on whether we're in the chamber or whether we continue with Skype, so that may change. So for the foreseeable future, it's 10 o'clock, but if we can just acknowledge all of those dates on there and accept them.
Sorry, it's 10 o'clock, not 9.
At the moment, yes. What I'm saying is the dates of the meeting on your agenda says 9 o'clock, which it always is if we're in the council chamber. But while we are still in Skype, it will continue for 10.
Thank
So
you.
that may change. The times, the dates won't change, but the times of the meetings might change.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I don't have any more business, so thank you all for your comments this morning. It was a very helpful morning, I think, for all. So goodbye and thank you. See you again soon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.